and this is the Agegroup Multisport Podcast with me, Richard Conway. This is a platform for Agegroup Multisport athletes to showcase their journeys. Welcome along to the Agegroup Multisport Podcast, and thank you once again for taking your time out and listening to our pod. Much appreciated. Hope everything's going well in your world. If you're training, it's not been too bad, I guess. We're in August. Hope you've been able to get out in the sunshine. And if you've been racing this weekend, hope it went well and you got the result you expected and wanted. Lots of racing going on, and we'll get into that. But first, on this episode, which is 82, we've got Adrian Wilkins, and Adrian got in touch and said he'd like to share his story. He emailed us and said his sporting prowess isn't anything special. Well, I'd agree to differ, to be honest, but there you go. We'll get into that. But he would really like to talk about hip replacements. And he's quite passionate about it because he's not only had one done, but he's had both his hips done. And he just wants to spread the word and reassure people that there is life after hip replacements, especially in sport. And we talk about how Adrian, having a full background of various sports all the way through his life, went in and got his hips done, and he's come out the other side and he's back representing GB. And as a matter of fact, he was racing this weekend over in Belgium, Menin at the European Triathlon Championships, where he was doing the aqua bike. And I believe he finished 10th. So congratulations, Adrian, on that fantastic result. So we get into all those details. And hope it can put people's minds who maybe need to have the op or are thinking about it, and maybe inspire those who've actually had it and have not got back to where they'd like to be quite yet. So that's coming up. And going back to the racing, lots going on. Like I said, there was the Belgian European Championships over there in Menin, and we had quite a few of our previous guests over there racing, and all did fantastically well. So I'm just going to list them. We had Louise Croxon, who came 7th. Ben Somerville, he came 6th in the aquathon. Lee Ross, he came 13th. Ross Crombie came 8th. Josh Lahari came 3rd. Andy Tucker came 12th. And as I said, Adrian came 10th. So congratulations to all you guys. Fantastic results and well done. And if you're after a comprehensive roundup of all the results over there in Belgium, Agegroup News over on Instagram and Facebook have got all the details, photographs. Head over to their social media. Instagram, it's age_group_news, and you'll find out actually in depth what's gone on. Well worth a read, well worth a follow. Give them a look up. And then there was also the 70.3 World Champs in Finland, and there was also an age group leg to that. So I'm going to focus on that because we've got an age group world champion at that distance also, and that was Donald Brooks. Yep, he's done it again. He's just went out there at a completely different distance and smashed it and took the win. So he is our 70.3 age group world champion. So a fantastic result. Congratulations, Donald. And you can hear all those guys' stories in the back catalogue, either on your favourite podcast platform or on our website, which is the Agegroup Multisport Podcast.buzzsprout.com, and they're all there. So if you want to be inspired, give them a listen. Other sport that was on this weekend and has just started, we had the Super League down in London. Only just watched that this morning, catching up. Some great results there for the Brits again. In both the men's and the women's races, some really exciting races, and the crowds were amazing as usual. That was really fun to watch. And been watching a bit of the Athletics World Championships as well all week, and we've had some great wins in that as well. I mean, just some of the performances have been outstanding, especially the men's 1500, where Kerr beat Ingebrigtsen. What a race that was. And then the young lad in the 800 metres, Patterson, got a bronze medal out of nowhere. He raced such a perfect race, and he was amazed himself. So it was fantastic to watch, really inspiring. And on top of that, the Vuelta's just started, which is the 3-week stage race over there in Spain. So got loads and loads of things to watch. And watching that much, I haven't really got much training done, but never mind. So anyway, moving on to the main event, because it's a long one, and I think we should just get straight into it now after waffling on for a few minutes. So here he is, Adrian Wilkins. Well, thank you ever so much for taking your time out in your day and coming on, and hopefully sharing your story and inspiring, as all the other athletes have done on the pod. If you just introduce yourself to everybody, that would be fantastic.
Great. Okay. Hi, I'm Adrian Wilkins. I'm 57 years old. Been an Agegroup triathlete since 2011. So I'm doing my 12th, coming out to my 13th year of Agegroup triathlon.
Yeah.
So how did it start? School. Sporty guy. I played rugby and cricket. Had a brief spell at Bristol rugby. Probably late 20s, went a bit late, probably should have done it a bit earlier, playing on the wing. But cricket, I suppose, is more my claim to fame. I had a season playing cricket with Shane Warne when he came over to Bristol. So I'm in a unique and elite club of, because I was wicketkeeper as well. So this is what makes it me even more unique, playing with Shane. That he came over for a season, and that was just a great experience, really. Yeah, playing with him 2-3 times a week, keeping wicket to this guy. He's only a youngster then, he was like 19, could turn it sideways. It was very entertaining. So happy memories of that. And he stayed in touch with everybody at the club from there anyway. So, cricket, I kept going for actually quite a significant time. But cricket and triathlon never really mix anyway, because they're both on either Saturdays or Sundays and summer sports. But it was rugby, which was, I suppose, more my love. Really, if I knew what I knew now about sport, I would have probably taken rugby a bit more seriously. I think, through my sort of late teens, 20s, I was more interested in going out than training and concentrating on playing rugby. So probably a bit of a missed opportunity, but it is what it is. I played club rugby and continued club rugby into my mid-40s. Most of my career was spent playing either on the wing or at fullback, so I'm a sprinter. And then gradually I moved closer towards the forwards, not going all the way in, ended up at number 10, mostly because I'm guaranteed to get a pass. Playing on the wing throughout the 1990s of the Rob Andrew era was not a good time to be a winger. The ball never so 2009. And this is sort of relevant, I suppose, because it's actually very relevant to triathlon. It was probably the one but last game, or pretty close to the last game. I was playing for my local club, which is North Bristol, and we were playing Bristol Harlequins, which is never the nicest place to go anyway. It's always very muddy, and they got a bit of mud up there as well. It's just not one of the nicest places to play rugby, but I vividly remember the game because I'm playing at number 10. And they probably had this 21-year-old 18-stone number 8 who just decided to run at me all game. So he'd pick up at the back of the scrum and just run at me all game. So, of course, I had to tackle him, given a choice not to would have turned me more than he did. But, so I spent the whole game tackling a 18-stone, 21-year-old number 8 who just wouldn't stop running a bit. I hesitate to say I got up Sunday morning. I probably didn't get up Sunday morning. It's probably Sunday afternoon by the time I got up. And that was this sort of eye-opener that in my mid-40s, perhaps I shouldn't be playing rugby anymore. And that was probably my one but last game. I think I probably played maybe the odd charity game since then, but nothing more so than that. And was that summer, my family and I, we quite a lot really. I enjoyed my sailing. We used to go to the Greek islands and sail around the Greek islands. But because I had 2 young children then, they would go into children's club. So I was mostly doing sort of day yachts, taking a day yacht. But being sun sail, by definition, is a sporty style hobby. I mean, it's now Nielsen's. It became the Nielsen's, but back then it was sun sail, similar to like a Mark Warner kind of holiday. And they ran a mini triathlon every week. They'd have a mini triathlon, and I probably skipped a bit of my youth growing up as well. I used to be a competitive swimmer, starting when I was the age of 6 and going through to probably quite late for swimming, maybe as 1920 when I backed it. I was never a great swimmer. I did county level swimming, but I was never a great swimmer. But I was a swimmer. I could swim. Front crawl butterfly was my stroke. When I was younger as well, like most kids had a bike. I used to cycle a lot. I used to go even on cycling holidays, cycle down to Cornwall once, just on a whim, which from Bristol was not admittedly that far, but it was still 250 miles down to Newquay, and so it's still a fair old trek. So I could cycle, and running was the issue. I'd playing rugby on the wing. 60 meters was a long run. You had to stop and have a rest and do another 60 meters. But I entered this sun sail triathlon thinking, well, I can swim, I can ride a bike. Of course, it's a sea swim. It was run up a hill, jump on a mountain bike, and I hadn't actually had much experience on mountain bikes, to be honest. And then a little run at the end. And I did it, and I thought, well, that was a bit of fun. I don't know where I came. I know I didn't win it. I was probably nearish the front. I would have been near the front after the swim. But the bike and the run just went backwards a bit. And then, because it was a 2-week holiday, the following week I did it again, and actually did it considerably better. I think I came second that time. And I thought, I quite like this. So that was probably the May time. It was early. It was the spring half-term holiday. So then I came back and started Googling. So triathlon, I quite like triathlon. It just sounds good, doesn't it? Triathlon. I can swim, I can ride a bike, I can run. So I Googled and I discovered the Bristol Triathlon. I thought, wow. And it was like the first ever Bristol Triathlon, 2009. I think this is fate. And it's in June, which was like a month away. So I thought, wow, okay, I'll enter. So I entered. You have to put down a swim time for your guesstimate for 400. It was a pool swim. So I guesstimated my best 400 meter time at the time, which wasn't particularly great. I wouldn't have thought then. And I turned up and they said, get there an hour early. So I got there an hour early. I think my start time was 8 o'clock, and I turned up at 7 just to rack my Boardman. I just bought myself a Boardman, little aluminium frame, but yeah, it's great. I loved it. It was £650 worth of race bike, and I thought I was the giddy. So I rocked up early, 7 o'clock, and they said, we've changed your swim start. You're on in 15 minutes. Get poolside. So I had zero time to be nervous. So literally, I just jumped in the pool, swam my lengths, ran to the bike, and then did a run at the end. And I just smiled the whole way through. It was, I wasn't particularly racing anyone or even myself. I was just doing it. I just finished and I thought, I just love this. This is for me. I just love it. And then I started looking at the rest of the diaries. July, August, September was coming, and I think I tried to fit in as many races as I could during that period. I just got hooked, completely hooked. So I just loved everything about it. And yeah, I wasn't particularly good. My swim was all right, but it wasn't great. My bike was all right, wasn't great. Actually, and I could run a bit in those days as well. So I had to figure the running. So I was in the middle. Yeah, I was happy with that. So in the following season, I couldn't wait for it to start. I packed in rugby that year, so it was all about doing triathlon. So I did a lot of the classics. I went and did Blenheim. I think I did London that year as well. I entered everything. Honestly, I just loved racing. Absolutely loved just racing. That was my competitive sport. You see, having played rugby and cricket every weekend, I assumed you raced every weekend. Yeah. So I looked for a race every weekend, really, because so 2010 was spent racing. But by then I joined actually just immediately after I did the Bristol Triathlon. I joined Bristol District Triathlon, which was a great club at the time. They were huge. I think we were probably the biggest club in the country at the time, with 900 plus members. I mean, still going, still a member now. I don't think the clubs perhaps are as big now as they used to be then, but it was a huge club at the time. So I was training with them, I was swimming with them, and there was a real camaraderie of, doing, because I'm a team sport guy, I like to be around people. Actually, having said that, I prefer riding a bike solo, but everything else I prefer other people. So yes, it's team sport. So I was getting my buzz, I was getting my thrill. So 2010, I started realizing I'm getting a bit better at this. I'm quite enjoying it. So of course, like everybody in triathlon, the first thing you think about after you sort of get good at it, you go from sprint to Olympic, and then you think, I'll do an Ironman. But how difficult can it be? So, and unfortunately, the club were doing a Ironman as a club in 2011. Although at the time it was a challenge race, it was Challenge Copenhagen. So I thought, great, I'll do that. I'll enter that. I'll give it a go. So that was my focus, and I think it's late season. I'd probably think maybe October time. So I had a whole season to train for it. So I typical race most weekends, and saw that as part of the training. Did a few long bikes. The training did get a bit onerous, to be honest. I'm used to a quick, a few sprints, and that's the training done. I lift a few weights. When you get on 6-hour bike rides followed by hour and a half, 2-hour runs, it's like, that's a long day. And I have young children as well. So,
yeah.
But, it was the buzz of doing it. It was the buzz of the training, the buzz of having this goal of doing this Ironman or challenge races. So 2011 came, I went to Copenhagen, did all right, had a good swim, had a great swim actually. Bike was all right. I just had a fun day out, really. I suppose the best way to explain it. It was just an enjoyable day with a lot of my teammates. I think it was about 30 or 40 of us went for a bad try. And it was good fun. So I thought, okay, would I want to do another one? Probably not. I didn't have I didn't cross the finishing line saying, thinking that's the best thing I've ever done. I didn't. Yeah. I just thought that was just a long day out with my friends, and I quite enjoyed it. Yeah. So 2011 came, and I thought, right, actually, what am I going to do this year? I thought, well, someone told me, why don't you do this GB age group stuff? And I thought, wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. We'll give that a go. And why not? I never generally realised, thought I'd have a chance of doing it. And that year, 2011, the World Championships were in Auckland, New Zealand.
Right.
And that was the year in which you qualified in the year of the race. So the very first race was Eton Dorney, and it was the first time I'd ever raced Eton Dorney as well, I think. So I rocked up there, did the swim, did the bike and run. I think I came like 11th in my age group. And I thought, okay, this is probably going to be a bit harder because obviously there's a top 4 going through. So, okay, this is probably a bit harder than I thought it was going to be. And I think I did the other 2 qualifiers. And I think in the third one, I got a qualifying place. Yeah. So that got very exciting. And I'd also qualified for the aquathon as well. I wanted to do it. Being a swimmer, I thought, I'll do the aquathon. So lo and behold, I found myself qualifying for GB, which is obviously extremely exciting. So you turn up at the airport, and the plane, I think it was Air Malaysia we were flying on. And of course, all the GB as well on the one plane, aren't they? Because you figure most people could go out either the Wednesday or Thursday before. So there was probably 200 of the plane, where literally the majority of the plane were GB age groupers, all with bike boxes. And Malaysian Airways hadn't anticipated this number of bike boxes. And I just remember the chaos of checking in. So we all got our bikes there, we got there. And I think the flight must have been a Tuesday from memory, because the aquathon was on the Wednesday and we landed Tuesday night. And there was a lady who actually became very good friends of mine and my wife who came with me. We met them on the plane on the way out. And we were trying to figure out in the coach if we can get there for the recce, the swim recce. On the Tuesday night before, and by the time we got there, we missed it by about an hour. So we were done nothing. We just arrived all the way in New Zealand. We've gone to bed, and the aquathon's on the Wednesday. We've done nothing. So get changed to go down to the aquathon, find out where it was. got my wetsuit on, queuing up. I think this is great. It was a pontoon start in the sense you hold on to the pontoon. Now, of course, thinking that I'm a swimmer, in a local race in my age group, I would be at or near the front. So I thought, well, how different could this be? So I decided I'll start in the middle somewhere. So the hooter goes, and I started in the middle, holding onto this pontoon. After about 3 or 4 strokes in, I realised, blimey, everybody's a good swimmer. And actually, I'm at the middle of the back of the pack, being literally dragged by these guys swimming on top of me. Of course, they're all Aussies and Kiwis, aren't they? So they all grew up swimming in the sea, and I'm in the Pacific Ocean with these great big breakers coming down on me. And I'm not a sea swimmer. Put me in a pool or a lake or even a river, I'll be all right. But in the sea, no. It's the closest to dying I ever got in a race. Actually,
it's a different ball game, isn't it? The sea, completely different ball game.
And when you're surrounded by good swimmers as well. People banging into you constantly with the waves. I mean, it was got silly. I mean, a couple of the waves later on got rescued because it was just a bit too choppy. There was a shelter bit where you swim out of the harbour, but as soon as you got out to the Pacific Ocean, it was like a big shipping lane, and tankers were going by, and you were getting their wake, and it was Anyway, I literally hugged the land as I got back, and then went off on my run. I wasn't sure if international triathlon was for me at that point, to be honest, because it was just a pretty hideous experience. Fortunately, everybody else said it was pretty hideous as well, so that made me feel a little bit better. But then come race day for the triathlon, I was doing the standard distance, and I was very nervous. I mean, my wife was there doing the sprint distance. She went off first, so I walked down with her to transition. She was probably going off 6, 7, and I wasn't on until about 8 or 9. So I had a couple of hours to kill, and I'm literally the only person sat in the transition area for the standard. And then they gradually start to fill up, and I'm seeing all these GB guys come in because we're all racking together, and they just look so good. They're all, I'm short and stocky is probably a bit unfair on me, but I'm built more like a rugby player than a long distance runner, shall we say?
Yeah.
And these guys all look lithe and fit, and got their GB full kit on, and their bikes were just amazing. So they're all racking up next to me, and some were friendlier than others, shall we say? Yes,
that's standard.
It's standard. But fortunately, a friend of mine had gone out there, and he didn't actually arrive till like the Friday. So I hadn't seen much of him, and he was there. So him and I, we were both in the same boat. This was both our first time. We're of similar standards, and we just kept looking at each other and saying, our depth there. This just looked a bit ominous. So anyway, the swim came. Now, I was quite lucky that I got back on the horse literally the day after the day after the aquathon, because I think it was probably the Dutch triathlon team had organised an impromptu swim down at a bay just down the road. So we got on our bikes and we cycled down to this bay. And if you speak to anyone who was in New Zealand for that World Championship, it did not stop raining for the whole time.
Really?
And it was proper rain as well. It was absolutely chucking it down. So we rode our bikes down, got drenched, but we're going for a swim. So down to a place called Mission Bay. And there's only a group of us, lady met on the plane, a few others, and we just decided to get back on the horse and get out into this really choppy sea. So they're all going to change, and I'm chatting to the Kiwi who's organised it. And I said, jokingly, are there any sharks out there? I said, no, mate, only orcas. And I said, okay, that's right, just killer sharks, that was it. Okay, killer whales, sorry. So I said, I won't tell the others, let them get on with it. So I then splashed around there and felt, okay, it's fun. I realised that sea swimming is then fun because it took the edge off. I wasn't racing, it wasn't the World Champs. So anyway, back to the start of the World Champs, the standard distance. Much the same, but I didn't start in the middle this time. I started to the side. And ironically, the swimmers in a triathlon aren't as good as the swimmers in an aquathon. Yeah. And the same can be said for an aqua bike as well, which I'll come on to later. So triathlon swimmers are generally slower. So, I found myself nearest the front, which was great. And actually, do you know what? I had a lovely swim. I had a little group of people around me. I just drifted on their feet. And what was the biggest thing for me then was when I came into transition, I saw all these GB bikes and they were all still there. Yeah, and I was the first to take my bike out.
So that's a big lift.
Yeah, exactly. And that, so I just, all of a sudden, I've gone from thinking I was so out of my depth to thinking, actually, do you know what? Yeah, perhaps I could do this. I had quite a good bike ride. I think I was about third Brit back. So there's only like 2 other bikes there. And I went off, and those days I could run. So I half decent, I think I ran about 41 or 42 10K. And I was 4th Brit, which was I think top 3 bits back in those days, qualified for London the following year. But do you know what? I had a great race, thoroughly enjoyed it, held my own. I didn't trouble anywhere near the top half or overall, because there was a lot of strong Antipodeans and USA guys there. But then I had the bug for it, so I entered next following year. There was London, there was, I can't remember how many. I had to go at all of them, did a bit of middle distance stuff, went to Volsey, did that. That was quite good fun. And then the sprint drafting came in, gave that a go. But the big one for me was Ibiza 2018. You went there, didn't you?
I did, yeah. I was doing the duathlon, yeah.
Well, I meant to do the aquathon, and I went to do the middle distance as well. Of course, you'd have left before the rain then as well, didn't you? You didn't have that torrential downpour. And doing the aquathon, it was a couple of days before. I've been having a bit of trouble with my hip, my right hip.
Right.
And it just hadn't been painful. It just been extremely stiff. And my right foot was sort of turned out. You imagine like a half Charlie Chaplin. One side of me was foot turned out, the other was pointing forward. And it was just like a really weird thing. And everybody looked at me and said, you limp. Yeah, there's something wrong with you, limp. And I had gone to see a surgeon in 2017. I was still racing and still doing stuff, but it was getting progressively worse. And he looked at my x-rays and said, you need a new hip. So I said, you sure you can't do a little scrape? No, I said, you need a new hip. So he said, take your time, come back whenever, but you need a new hip. So I'll carry on. So I tried a bit of physio, and of course you're doing bone on bone. So I'm trying to convince myself I need anything other than a hip replacement. So then I go off and do the aquathon, and I could swim. Yeah, my swimming was quite good at the time. But my run, it was just shocking. It wasn't even really running. It was one left leg acting normally, one right leg swinging behind me. Yeah. And I don't know, I ran 25, 26 minutes. I was the slowest runner in my wave. I got to the end and I thought, yeah, that's it. My running days are over. I think about the op when I got back. I still had the middle distance aquabike to do a couple of days later. So I thought, I'll just do that anyway. So I did the middle distance aquabike, and I could cycle with my leg. The longer I cycled, the more back trouble I got, because I get a lot of back trouble standing up and because I was twisted. And I did the aquabike. I came second, which was great. So second overall, got my silver medal. So that was happy days. Yeah. And aquabiking is the way forward, obviously. Doesn't involve running. But then I got back, and then shortly after that, I went to see my surgeon later that year. And I'll always remember this conversation. I sat with him, and he said, look, it's been a year since we saw each other. Are you ready for your op yet? I said, yeah, I think I am. I just want to make sure, though, that, are you saying that afterwards that I might not be able to run, I might not be able to ski, I might not be able to do, and I listed a few things off. And he then turned around to me and said, can you do those things now? And I said, no. And that was when the light bulb came on. I thought, well, if I can't do that, what am I actually going to give up anyway by having my hip replaced? And he said, look, there's a fair chance you can run after. There's a fair chance you can ski after. At the moment, you got zero chance.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic way of looking at it, isn't it?
That was the light bulb. That's what I say to anybody who wants it. And I'll come on to that in a minute, because there's many I've spoken to about this. So I booked into operation in January, and I went in, had it done, and I was both apprehensive and excited. I just didn't know what to expect. For anyone who ever gets it done, it's 2 weeks of hell, 1 night of excruciating pain, and then 2 weeks of hell, and then it's all right. and then there's a little curve upwards. But I had a target. I'd qualified the year before, even though I couldn't run, which was quite amusing. I'd qualified to compete in Lausanne in the World Sprint Championships later that year, and actually made a note how long it took. 7 years, 5 days from when I had my hip replaced, I competed in the World Championships in Lausanne. And it was sprint triathlon. My run was okay. It was a hilly run, but I had a bit of a calf injury going into it. So that was my hindrance more than my hip. There's nothing wrong with my hip. I had quite a good race. What's fascinating though, and if you're interested, I can share this with you. There's 2 pictures of me running to the professional pictures taken on site. One of me in Ibiza, landing on my right leg, which was my replaced leg, or it wasn't when I was in Ibiza, and one in Lausanne, taken at almost the same moment, my foot the same position on the floor, and it's like, wow, the difference between the two. My surgeon uses this now. He tells everybody that this is an example, the before and after, and then he says to me, "This was 7 months later." This just shows you the difference. So those pictures are worth looking side by side, because
you'll have to pass them on, send them through.
My position's identical, but you can see it.
Yeah.
So I suppose I'll come back to my hip journey a bit then, but then I could compete a bit more until about 2020. My hip started playing up, and I was told that I need a new one of those at some stage.
Did they, so this time, just going back, did they say why or what caused the hip issues in the first place?
Very good question. When I was playing rugby back in the 20s, I had a bit of an injury. I tore my thigh sprinting. It's not pleasant when you're running flat out, but it was one of those things. Ended up me having surgery and x-rays and stuff. And when I had the x-rays done, I always remember, I was probably about 24 at the time. The surgeon looked at my hips and he said, "Oh, you got those kind of hips." And I said, "Well, what does that mean?" He said, "You're going to need to replace them sometime in the future."
Wow.
So ultimately it was hereditary. My father's had both hips replaced, my uncle's had both, my aunt's had one. And it's hereditary. Did I wear it out? Possibly. Wicket keeping might have done it, maybe. Sporty lifestyle, maybe. But as my surgeon said, it was going to happen anyway. Right. So probably better to happen when you're younger than later. Which again, very slow. So I don't think it wasn't an injury, or it might have been a series of injuries playing rugby, or like most boys, I'd spent more time on the floor rolling around than I did standing up. So, but I would put it down more to hereditary, because there is the family history of it. So 2020, I started to get a lot of pain in my left hip, or groin actually, whereas my right side I had no pain, and it's excruciating. I get most nights lie on the sofa, 2 a.m, just trying to get through the night really, and it was agony. So I contacted my surgeon. It's middle of COVID, and he said, "Look, bizarrely, I can fit you in pretty quickly." This was early 2021. So he said, "Come in May, we'll get you a date in May." So I had to wait about 3 months when I chatted to him. So 15th of May 21, rocked up to have my left hip replaced. Now I knew what to expect this time. I knew what I could, my limits of my body and my recovery. So I was determined to recover much quicker this time, and I did all the exercises. Again, I can share those later. But that one I'd also entered and qualified for Valencia. Actually, it wasn't Valencia, at Malmo the year before, when I could run. But Malmo, because of COVID, got delayed, and it became Valencia in 2021. So I was doing Valencia in the September, and this was May. So lo and behold, 4 months, literally 4 months and 10 days after I had my left hip replaced, I raced in Valencia. I did okay, again, but I had a calf injury just before, again.
Do you think that was tied to it, or?
No, I used to get them before.
Just a coincidence?
Anyway. Unfortunately, another family trait, I have big calves, and they're powerful sprinters' calves. And when I start racking up miles, they grumble. And of course, being a typical athlete, as soon as they grumble, rather than rest, I just keep going until they go pop, and then I think they've recovered, and I try and go again. If I had the patience to take 2 or 3 weeks off, I probably wouldn't get anywhere near the injuries. But I had a short time to I mean, 4 months after a hip hop to be running a 5K isn't a lot of time, because it takes you a couple of months just to stop walking.
Yeah.
So I had to focus on trying to do as much as I can without overdoing it too much. So yeah, I did the 5K then. So I didn't accept the world light. It was either late 22, early 23s. Yeah, that was all right. I was just happy to be there, to be honest.
Yeah.
Swim was all right. Bike was all right. And then since 2021, so I had 22. What did I do last year? I think I did something. I did Bilbao last year, aqua bike and aquathon. I think that was the only one I did. This year so far, I've done the Worlds in Hamburg, sprint and mixed relay. I'm in Menin next week for the middle distance.
Oh yeah. There's a few that I've had on the podcast to go in.
And then I'm in Pontevedra again.
Yeah.
Later this year for the standard aqua bike and the super sprint.
Cool.
So I'm making the most of my new hips. So
yeah.
I'm never a front packer. I'm always in the middle, but
it's just getting. You've still got to qualify. You know what I mean? And as you said earlier, it's not as easy and as straightforward as people think it is, especially in our age group. You know,
it's competitive.
It's so competitive, isn't it?
Just don't get into aqua bike, because that's where it's even more competitive. The post 50s aqua biking is almost getting as busy now as the middle distance racing, because you get to a certain age, especially on the middle distance length of thing, because a lot of people like the middle distance but can't run a half marathon anymore because various elements in their 50s and 60s. But aqua bike has been, a godsend for the non-runners. I mean, aquathon's one thing, but you still need to be able to run. But aqua bike, and you'll find the quality of swimming. Just look at Bilbao. Bilbao, I'm a swimmer. I was probably 6th in my age group in the aqua bike, but I'd have been 1st in my age group in the middle distance. Yeah, and that just gives you an idea of the difference between, the standard. And the guys who were getting out before me then were getting out quite a long way before me as well. So it wasn't like I was just behind them. So it's actually, if I'm honest, more competitive at the top end, which I find a lovely challenge, because I get my head with biking a bit. So I mean, partly the reason I contacted you, I think I said to you, was really that over the last couple of years since I've had both hips done, I've had a lot of people come up to me and say, you're obviously still doing triathlon. I need my hip done. What advice would you give? Or in many cases, which is very flattering, a lot of people say you're an inspiration because you're still doing it. And if I'm honest, I'm quicker now than I was before. If I wanted to be, I mean, my running, if I wanted, I used to run sub 20 back when I was doing it properly. I probably could do that again if I wanted to. It's finding the time and inclination now, which I probably lack a little bit more of than the pain of putting myself through it. So I'm no worse. I'm definitely no worse than I was before. I mean, my swim and my bike, I think my swim hasn't changed. My biking is arguably stronger than it's ever been. And I've been doing this 12 years, the age group stuff anyway. So I'm definitely not getting any slower. But there's a lot of people around me not getting slower either. So I'm not getting any closer to the front. It's just
that's the trade-off, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you're getting newer people coming in who haven't been doing it for 12 years.
Exactly.
And they haven't got the wear and tear, and you know what I mean? They just rock up and But
I'm not going backwards, at least. So that's
I think that's the key. I always say, it's not necessarily when you're getting older is to get any faster. It's not to get any slower.
Exactly. And that's sort of where I am at the moment. I quite enjoy staying there. So I've got no ambition to really train hard to be at the front. I have a busy job. I have a family. Sure. I like wine. It's just not for me. I mean, I train enough to finish in the middle, not be last for it, and do okay and enjoy qualifying each year.
And I think that's the key thing, isn't it? Enjoying it.
Yeah. And then the really exciting thing is my daughters do it as well.
Yeah, I saw that. Do they both do it?
Yeah. Lucy, my youngest, she was in Hamburg with me. Right. That was her first Worlds. She's done Europeans in Valencia a couple of years ago. She was 16 then. Although it's a shame she didn't do Sweden because she'd have been 15, because she'd have been the youngest probably ever, I think, at 15, because it's the age in which you go up. So she'd have been 16 after.
Yeah.
been which would have been quite sweet, but she was still the youngest, I think, comprehensive. She's a very good triathlete. She's a swimmer. Actually, both my daughters are swimmers. They were literally chucked in the deep end, and she's a national swimmer, or was a national swimmer. So she can hold her own swim, but she's a sprinter, a bit like her dad. So she has to learn converting 50 meters to 750 meters, and I know non-swimmers are envious of swimmers.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big difference swimming 50 meters flat out and then swimming 750. It's a big difference. And
but it's all about the technique, isn't it, really? You know what I mean? You can build up your stamina. It takes you years to try and improve your technique.
Exactly. But watching her swim, her leg kick was like an outboard motor. Of course, then put a wetsuit on her and her feet are actually out of the water. It just looks quite comical. But she's now finally cracked swimming longer distance. Whereas my older daughter actually was never a sprinter, but she was a good steady Eddie swimmer, so she's always been quite good. So yeah, Lucy, my youngest, was with me in Hamburg. My oldest is coming to Menin with me to do the aquathon. She's done a couple of worlds herself. She did Lausanne with me and Rotterdam. And my wife used to compete. I don't think she did any more age groups now, but she did a few. She's did Auckland and a few of the Europeans, Lisbon and Geneva. So we did it as a family thing. We have raced together, all four of us, a couple of times. Not a GB event though, I don't think, but in other races. So I'm lucky in the sense that everybody in the family gets it. They get why you want to. We got 11 bikes in the garage. It gives you an idea. There's a lot of oil and lycra in our house.
Yeah. It's cool. It's so cool that your kids are involved and you can race together. It's just so nice, isn't it?
Well, that's what inspires me. It inspires me to race with them, and they like watching me race. It's all part of the camaraderie of it all. My daughter still wants to beat me, but she hasn't yet. It's still
it'll come.
Actually, when I had a mechanical on my bike, but we don't count that one.
It'll come soon enough.
Well, again, it's like the hip thing. You keep trying to put it off. Eventually, you can. I think she's a season away. She's next year. I think she'll be beating me. Oh, but so I wanted to mention about if anyone was interested in some of the hip stuff. I had so many people because the age group 55 through to 65s and stuff are having hip replacements now, and are thinking it's the end. Whereas I never thought it was the end when I realised that I wasn't giving up anything. It was always a beginning. This is the beginning of my next stage. And I was then excited about it. I mean, every day I would walk a little further and step a little more, or just do something a little bit more each time. And it was like little bit by little bit. And then all of a sudden, like Forrest Gump, I was running again. Yeah. And
I think it's a mentality. It's the mentality, isn't it? Because a lot of people, unlike you, would and not with your background, and would just think, oh, well, I can't do this and I can't do that, and that worries me. Whereas it's the mindset, and I think if you've got that mindset anywhere in life, then it just spurs you on. So you are, to share your story of what you can do is, it's commendable, because then it will inspire other people to actually think, well, he's done it, we can do it as well.
But also, I need to caveat, this is not for everybody. I mean, I know some people who would have a hip replacement and say, I'm never going to run again, I don't want to wear it out. And it's horses, of course. I mean, my surgeon is triathlete. He was an ex-GBA group, but back in the day, the early 2000s, still does Ironmans when he can. He knew that I wanted to compete again. He said, and the newer style hips, there's not enough track record to know when they ever wear out. The old adage of 15 years is the ones from 20, 30 years ago where they got some data. The new style ones, I can either die with it or not. But do you know what? I'd rather have 15, 20 years of doing what I want to do and then stop than not wearing it out and dying in my 80s thinking, well, what a waste of 30 years that was. So I take the view, if I need another replacement, which apparently everybody believes is a bad thing. Actually, is again, it's very easy. I mean, new hips, you either just take off the head or replace the cup, and
and just in and out again. And I guess just think what it's going to be like in another 10, 15 years. Technology's moved on, things have moved on. You know, they're doing these operations now for fun, aren't they? So it's going to be even easier, even better, I would imagine.
Yeah. But there's 6 triathletes I personally have come up to me in the last year or so who had hips replaced, and they're all back competing. In fact, last year was quite funny. We did a sprint relay, a local sprint up in the Cotswolds, a super sprint relay, and it was a team of hip replacements, all over 50. But we came 3rd overall.
That is.
You know, that's really cool. Yeah, we were all quite good triathletes, and I'm racing with a good friend of mine who's an ex-GP, now retired. Good for him. Him and I are going to Pontevedra to do the. Admittedly, we're doing the aqua bike, and we're not running, but that's more through choice. We never like running anyway. But you know, there's many out there, and there's not many talking about. There is life after a hip replacement. So, but it's not for everybody. I mean, I respect anyone who says, you know, I don't want to run anymore. I don't want to run the risk of wearing it out or whatever.
Yeah, but like you've just said, though, I mean, there's other things that you can do, like the aqua bike. And that's the beauty of multi-sport, isn't it? Because there's always stuff, you know, people who don't like running, and I'll say this quite a lot, then they can do aqua bike. If you don't like, you know, if you don't like swimming, you do duathlons, or you're not good at it. That's my main you know, sport, really. I do triathlons, but again, it's what we said earlier. It's just because you haven't got the technical ability, you haven't been swimming from a smaller age, then it's a lot more difficult to try and qualify.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when I see, my wife, for example, unfortunately, she's surrounded by 3 swimmers in the family. She did head-up breaststroke until she was about 40, and then had to learn to swim front crawl. Yeah. And the best will in the world, she's never going to be near the front of the no matter what she does. She trains more than we do on swimming, because she didn't learn when she was young. And unfortunately, it's one of those things. There is the odd exception. I admit there is the odd exception who can do it, but most people, if you haven't got a swim background, it's. And watching my children as well. I mean, I know when they do the selection for the junior national selections, they're not interested in your bike time. All they want to know is can you swim and run? Yeah. Because they can teach you cycling. That's the one they just sit on a bike and ride lots.
Absolutely.
I probably just offended all the cyclists out there.
Well, not really. I mean, you look at Alex Yee. You know, he wasn't particularly a great swimmer. I mean, he wasn't bad, but that level, those standards, he wasn't the best swimmer. Yeah. You know, and he's worked on it. Yeah. But his run and his bike were so well. Even his bike wasn't great. No, to be fair.
But he had the run.
Yeah.
So he only needed really to work on the swim, because the bike, especially in draft racing, looks after itself. It does to a certain extent if you can get your swim right.
If you can get in the pack. Yeah.
Which is why I like draft racing, because a local race, I'll be out or near the front. In a world championship, I'll be second or third pack, which is nice because it's still near the front. But so you still feel like you're part of it. My run's been letting me down, so I'll either sort that out next year or not bother. I'm more inclined to try and sort it out a bit more.
Yeah, good.
But I'll only do 5Ks. I don't think I may do an Olympic. I may do a middle, but I'm not going to do another marathon, that's for sure.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's a great story. On that, so when you got into Agegroup, were you a coach? Were you part of a club?
Oh, no, yeah, well, that's exactly when I got into it. No, I just rocked up and did the race, and then I joined Bad Tri.
Right.
And that was coach swim sessions. We would go out Saturday bike rides, and there would be a couple of run sessions, which I didn't join in. I'd run on my own. So I didn't have a coach then, but Andy Bullock, who was the head coach, he coached me up until the Ironman, which I did in 2011. So he coached me up to that because I thought I needed the discipline of a coach. And then I Didn't use a coach for a while, and then I had another coach called Katie Singe, who was a pro triathlete at the time. She no longer, I don't believe she races anymore. She's an ex-bad triathlete, and then latterly I was being coached by Annie Emerson for a while.
Right.
2021, shortly after my hip hop. I think it was after Valencia. But then it was another operation. I had 3 major operations in the last 4 years. It's quite a common operation, but I had a few complications. I started getting atrial fibrillation back in during COVID. I was out running one day, wearing my Garmin, and then realised that my heart rate went up to 200 beats a minute. And I thought, that's a bit unusual. So I stopped running, wait for my heart rate to go down. It did, being a typical bloke. And I thought, I'll just carry on then. So I carried on running. And it went back up to 200. So I waited again. So I repeated this a couple of times, got back, thought nothing more of it. It was back to normal. A week or so later, I was swimming in a pool and I felt it go again. You know when it goes, you just feel this kind of flutter thing. And I was a bit breathless. So I just paused and waited. And again, it stopped. And then a week later, I was swimming again. It went again. And this time it didn't stop. So I got home and I sat on the sofa. And this time I actually told my wife that something was going on, because previously I hadn't even mentioned it to her. So I sat on the sofa, my heart's like 220 beats a minute, thinking this isn't normal, it needs to stop. So that's when I started Googling. I thought, I better do some research, find out what's going on with them. So I researched, and there was a few tips. They said, like, try holding your breath or eat something or drink some cold water. So I drank some ice cold water and then it stopped. So my wife said, look, you've got to go and see someone, get it sorted. So I said, okay. So I went to see a cardiologist. Again, this is literally about a month before COVID hit. So we're looking to February 2020. And I showed him my Garmin figures with my heart rate, and he said, you got atrial fibrillation. You could either have an op or learn to live with it. And I thought, Operation Heart, I'll learn to live with it. I was sort of seeing out what was causing it. It's mostly dehydration, I think, in my case. But it still couldn't manage it completely. And it was just annoying. If I was doing a race, if I was on a bike, I'd have to stop and just, that's it, my day's over. And I couldn't train certain days. It was just annoying. But I'd muck on through it. But there was one time in particular when I was up in London working, and I'd been out with a client for lunch. It wasn't even alcoholic lunch. I just think I just had 1 bottle of water all day. So I hadn't actually drunk much. Got back to my hotel room at 6 o'clock. I was staying in Paddington somewhere. And my heart went again. When I mean went, I mean the beats just shot up. And I thought, okay. And I just sat on the bed waiting for it to stop, trying to do some emails. And 2 or 3 hours later, it was like 8, 9 o'clock at night, and it was in the summer, it still hadn't stopped. And I thought, right, okay, I'll go have a cold shower, that might work. So I tried to get out of my bed, and I sort of pretty much collapsed. And I was all dizzy, and I thought, this isn't good. This isn't good. Right, haven't had this before, don't like this. So I thought, right, what am I going to do? So I could go home, it'd take me like 3 hours to get back to Bristol, and then what am I going to do? Or I could go find the local A&E to where I was. And so of course I Googled A&E. I'm literally 500 metres from St Mary's Hospital in Paddington. So I thought, right, that's it. So I quickly packed everything in my bag, and I got my bag, and I tried to walk the 500 metres to St Mary's Hospital. Longest 500 metres of my life. I had to stop every 10, 20 metres just to get my breath. And I'm thinking, this isn't good. And because I'm clutching my chest with my hand. And there's 2 policemen outside. And these 2 policemen, they looked at me in horror and came towards me. And I thought, blimey, what have I done? And then what I realised is, as I was chucking everything in my bag, I'd actually cut my finger. And I was wearing a white shirt. And I'd been clutching my chest with my hand, and I had blood all down my shirt. So I'm walking into A&E looking like I've been stabbed.
Right.
So they said, quick, we'll get you in. So they said, have you been stabbed? And I said, no, but I think I'm having a heart attack. or words to that effect. So don't worry, we'll get you in anyway. So they literally got me straight past the front of the queue, straight into A&E. And then they sort of stripped me off, chucked me on a bed, explained what was going on. I was told I was the nicest smelling patient they ever had, because I literally had that shower like a couple of minutes before to these electrodes on me, ECGs and all sorts. And the slightly worrying thing is they said, we haven't got a clue what's going on here. And I thought that was slightly worrying. Said, your heart's all over the place. And then he called this other guy in. He said, I've seen this before. I know what you got. And the clock maybe and sort of stopped. And they put me on a saline drip. And they said, look, you can either stay the night here or go back to try to go past the hotel room, thanks. Yeah. So they said, look, if it happens again, don't try and walk it. Just ring 999, get an ambulance, and we'll get you in. So I said, fine, okay. So I walked the 500 meters back to the hotel room, literally got in the room and closed the door, and it went again. It started beating really fast again. I thought, bugger, let me just sit, relax, it'll stop. Of course it didn't, and I waited about 3 a.m. and then rang the ambulance. And they said, stay in your room, we'll come up and get you. I said, oh no, that's embarrassing. No, I'll come down and meet you outside. So I didn't just come outside. They chatted me in the back of the ambulance, did the ECG, tutted quite a bit, looked at each other and said, you're a blue lighter. So I said, what does that mean? So that means we blue light you straight into A&E. You don't know, your heart rate's too high to queue. So straight into A&E, straight back in earlier, and they thought it was quite amusing. It did settle down again, and I left at 6 or 7 in the morning, and then went home. And Julie said, look, we can refer you through the NHS, you can get this done, sorted out. You need to pay and go and see a cardiologist and get this sorted. Here's your ECG readings. We're not quite sure what's going on here, but he would know. So I went back home. That day I'd rung the cardiologist I'd seen previously, and he got me in very short notice, so about a couple of days after. And I showed him the images of the ECGs. He said, no wonder they couldn't figure it out, because there's 2 things going on here. He said, you've got atrial fibrillation. And atrial fibrillation with your left ventricle apparently flutters up and down. So your heart rate goes from 60 to 160 and more, and then up and down, up and down. And you've got that going on, but your other ventricle, your left ventricle, you've got atrial flutter. And atrial flutter is when your heart rate stays the same, about like 156 beats a minute, so it will stay flat. One ventricle trying to go up and down, the other ventricle trying to stay the same. And you just get this really weird ECG reading. And he said, look, you could try and live with it again like you did before, or you could have the op. And again, it's a bit like the hip, because I've had the hips done by now, so I'm used to sort of having some major ops. And I said, look, what's sort of the worst case here? What happens if I leave it? He said, look, you can live with it. That's not a problem. Many people do. He said, but it's not going to go away. Now it's started, it's not going to go away. And the occurrences are only going to get worse. And the longer you leave it, the harder it is to fix. So I think that was the last bit did it for me. And he said that the longer it is, the harder it is to fix. I said, you know what, let's just do it. So I booked in a month or so later, and through the NHS actually. Actually, both my hips were through the NHS as well, which was great. And I had my heart done. And he told me that after 10 days you can start training again, just lightly to start with, but you can get back out there. So sure enough, day 10, I decided to go for a little run around the block. And it was the hardest run of my life. I determined to make it because it's only like a 2 kilometer shuffle around the block. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make sure I run it. And I got back, it shouldn't be like this. And I Googled everywhere, it shouldn't be like this. So I thought, right, the following day, I thought, I'll go for a swim. I literally got to the end of the swimming pool and I had to stop. I couldn't breathe. I literally couldn't breathe. It felt like I was drowning down of breathing. And I thought, this is not right. And I had similar action in a race the year before when I actually stopped for the first time ever when I was swimming and held on to the because I just couldn't breathe. And I put it down to maybe this thing with my heart at the time, but I just held on because I was looking forward to the biking run. I didn't want my race to stop just then, so I carried on. But I then really, really struggled for weeks with breathing. I couldn't really run anywhere. Cycling seemed okay, bizarrely. I could cycle. I couldn't swim. I couldn't get more than 2 lengths without stopping or literally feeling and drowning. And people would say to me, "Oh, yeah, you hold your breath underwater." I said, "Well, I'm a swimmer. I swim. I know how it feels to breathe when you swim. I've been doing it since I was 6 years old. Something's wrong. I'm telling you, something is wrong. This isn't right." So the surgeon then gave me a call after, and he said, "Look, come in. We'll do some tests." So I went and did a load of tests, and he said, "I generally cannot see anything wrong with your heart. Nothing wrong with your heart. Nothing we would have done would cause shortness of breath." And then he paused. He said, "Have you had COVID recently?" And I said, "I don't think so. But the last time I was tested was before I went to hospital, not after." And I said, "Do you know what? After I left hospital, after my heart, it felt just like I'd had COVID, because I'd had COVID twice before." And he said, "It felt just like I had COVID, but I assumed it was my heart, not COVID. So I didn't bother testing myself." And he said, "Do you know what? I think you've had COVID." And I think it was a question of, I sort of developed a bit of long COVID because I couldn't breathe with water. And then it didn't get any better, the breathing. Well, actually, did it get better? It got a little bit better. I could swim 6 to 8 lengths before I stopped, but it still wasn't right. I didn't try to stop on the swim, because once I stopped, get my breath, I could go again. So I was entering races knowing at some stage I'll stop on the swim, which wasn't to Italy. And I took my bike on. I was cycled in Sicily, but I'm from Bristol. My parents live in Cornwall. I've cycled some hills, but Sicily is, these hills look like little mountains. It was proper hilly. I remember one ride I was up, and I got lost up in the hills, and I was sat on my bike trying to figure out where I'm going, look at my phone, and I was on gravel, and I figured out where I was going. I just went to clip back into my bike, and I slipped, fell over. Yeah, done it dozens of times before. I'm sure we all have. I was stationary. Yeah. I was just a bit embarrassed. A car went past, and I was just, oh God, it's embarrassing. A little bit bashed because I landed on gravel. And I got up and looked down, and my leg was cut, my Achilles. It wasn't just cut; it was very, very deep cut. And then I realised why. I caught myself on a cable tie, which is on my road bike, which I used to put my elastic bands to my shoes, and it sliced the back of my leg right by the Achilles, and there was blood pouring everywhere. And I'd been on blood thinners because of my heart up, and it would have been a mess. But when I've been cycling with blood thinners, I've been taking a first aid kit with me. Unfortunately, I took this I actually had it with me. So I bandaged myself up as tight as I could. And I thought, I'm still 20k from the hotel. I got cycled 20k with the deepest looking gash on my leg. And I've got, Italy, I don't speak Italian apart from ciao and a few other choice Italian words. I could try and cycle back. So I tried cycling back very tentatively. It took me a long time. Got back to my room, rang my wife, who's with my daughters, and said, "Look, I've cut my leg. Can you come have a look?" My daughter, who likes this kind of stuff, she was wanting to be a paramedic at the time. 16-year-old Lucy, the youngest, she came running back to the room. This is the most exciting thing of the holiday, to check a wound out. And she took one look at it. She got to go to hospital. My wife took a look and was actually sick when she looked. And she said, "Look, I'll go and get the first aid first from the hospital." And she came in, and I put this just like a small bandage on the back of my leg. So it didn't look much because I stopped the bleeding, or it wasn't, because the cut was so clean, the bleeding wasn't much. So this lady came in, the first aid with the first aid kit, and she took one look at when I untook the bandage, because she said, "Oh, there's nothing here. I got a little bit of TCP. We'll put some cotton wool on it, it'll be fine." I opened it up, took one look at it, and she was almost sick. You need to go to hospital. So she said, "But the ambulance probably wouldn't come for you for that. They probably wouldn't believe you, but we'll get you a taxi and we'll take." And of course, this is the middle of blooming a COVID outbreak in Italy as well. So the hospital's closed apart from A&E emergencies, and you have to wait outside in the car park to be seen. They wouldn't allow you in. And there's me and about 8 other. My wife stayed with me for a while, but bless her, she shouldn't have wasted the day just Saturday, because I was there 6 hours waiting to be seen. Me and about 8 to 10 other Italians we were like it. Yeah. None, they didn't speak English, I didn't speak Italian, but we all got on. If you know what I mean, it's one of those, it's like shipwrecked on an island together, all sat in the car park waiting to be seen. And then fortunately, one other Italian guy he spoke a little bit in English, and he told me what I needed to do. Otherwise, without him, I'd probably still be there. So eventually I got seen, and this sort of triage nurse looked at me as I was completely wasting their time, because by now I probably had a plaster on the back, no bigger than like a credit card, if you like, but that was covering the cut. And she thought I was wasting her time. So she lined me down on the bed, and she peeled it off. And then you could just hear her go, "Oh my God," to get the surgeons. And then they come in and what's the big deal? It doesn't look very big. And they'd peel it off. And like, "Oh my God," because it was just really deep. And this is quite hard to explain. So it's like a really, really deep cut. And they thought I'd cut my Achilles in half as well. So fortunately, a surgeon turned up who could speak English. And he said, "Look, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to get in with my fingers and see if your Achilles has actually been cut. Because if it's cut, this is a big thing." And he said it's going to hurt. So I said, "Okay, thanks." So he then got in with his fingers, started rolling around. And I was just going, as you would, I was very loud coming out of the room, with a few other choice words in there as well. And he was great. He was great because he knew how to put me at ease. He started joking. He said, in England, you say "ah," you're in pain. I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Ah." In Italy, we say "I." He said, "Ah," we say "I." So I said, "Great, I'll swear Italian from now." So from there on, he's like I every time I play around. So that sort of focused my mind elsewhere. But he was amazing. 28 stitches later, whatever. He said, your Achilles is fine, but here's some antibiotic. Take those, no swimming. And I still had 6 days left of the holiday, and you've been told no swimming, and we had a 50-meter pool at the hotel. So, and then stupidly, I decided to go swimming after like a couple of weeks, and it got infected. So I needed another course for antibiotics. So I went to the GP and said, infected. So I said, "Look, don't swim now for like 3 weeks. Take this course for antibiotics." So finished the course of antibiotics, went for a swim, and it was like I was a teenager again. I could breathe. It was like I was cured. It was like a sense of everything was okay. This is really weird. So I started doing a bit of research about antibiotics and COVID. And the research says it does nothing for COVID at all, but it can fight the effects of long COVID, especially any remnants of pneumonia on the lungs. Right. So great. And I thought it's fine until I got COVID again, which was early this season, January, February time. And I couldn't breathe again. But I knew what the problem was. I knew it was, I had this like, well, did I know? I thought I knew it was if I take antibiotics. And a good friend of mine, the GP, who I'm actually going to Pontevedra, he was on the COVID task force in Bristol, and he was, one of his job was allocating cases and studying the effects of COVID. So I rang and told him my story about the antibiotics. He said, "Actually, do you know, not enough research has been done about COVID. That may or may not be true. We just don't know." Yeah. So he said, "Look, why don't you go see a GP, get some antibiotics, see if it works." So I went to see my GP, and they said, "This is interesting." And they did all the tests, breathing tests on me. And they said, "You're fine, you can breathe." I said, "No, I can't. But when I go swimming, I can't breathe." And they said, "Oh yeah, a lot of people can't breathe when they swim." I said, "No, but I mean, I'm a swimmer. I know when I can breathe or not. I can't breathe." So he said, he sort of reluctantly said, "Okay, I'll give you a course of antibiotics." And 8-10 days later, breathing fresh again. And since then, that was earlier this year. Since then, 1, I haven't caught COVID again, and 2, I've been breathing fine. So out of my accident then, but that sort of goes back to when I was being coached by Annie Emerson, when you asked about coach. So it's a back of the story. Annie had me join that period where I couldn't breathe, my swimming. So she had me at the beginning of that. But then I hit this stage that I couldn't breathe. And it was just, she was doing sets for me. And I'm saying, that's when I just can't do it. And I lost my mojo a bit then as well, if I'm honest. But when I could breathe again, it all came back.
Yeah.
Hence this year's been good. But I just self-coach now. I just do, I do everything on feel. I follow a bit of the Brett Sutton approach to coaching, that my session today is based on what I did yesterday and what I'm going to do tomorrow, and no really any. So if I ran yesterday, I won't run today because I never run 2 days in a row. But if I swam and biked yesterday, I might just do an easy swim today or a run. I'd never do like a double hard session or something like that. So I'm literally planning my day the day before based on what I've done that day and what I'm going to do the day after. Yeah, but I'm not training to win. I'm training to have a good time, enjoy myself with my family, finish somewhere in the swim. I know I'm a strong swim biker. At Hamburg this year, for example, I was literally the first Brit off the bike. I ended up 8th or 9th Brit, because they all run past me. And, most of them who know me say a little high as they go past because they sort of know it's going to happen. At some stage, I'll be at or near the front, and then they all run past me. And one day I'll just keep going on the run, and then they'll either think I've stopped somewhere and then be shocked to see that I've actually finished. But I'm waiting for that day to come.
Cool. Well, that's a great story. Lots of things to think about there, especially for people who are worrying about hips and, future of how they're going to deal with it. I think you'll have give them food for thought, definitely. So thanks for that.
Yeah. I'm happy to talk to anybody. I mean, I'm available on Facebook if anyone wants to message me if they're thinking of having a hip, or if they've had a hip operation, or they're just worried about anything to do with the hip. Yeah, I say it's not the same for everybody. I wouldn't necessarily recommend what I do to everybody, but it's what I am doing, though, is showing it's possible if it's something you do want to do. Yeah, you can compete at the same level as you could before. In fact, even be better if you want to be.
Yeah. Right, we'll get to the quick fire questions.
Oh, blimey, more questions. Okay, I thought we'd done right. Okay, gone in far away.
Just a few quick fire questions I always ask people at the end. What's your favourite bit of kit?
My favourite bit of kit? Wetsuit. I wear a Blue 70 Helix. I've got a Blue 70 Helix thermal as well. And the reason why it's my favourite suit, and it's almost like saying that you're a swimmer by wearing it. I know that sounds really weird, but even in Hamburg, it happened to me that it's a GB guy. I had actually met him before, though we realised we'd actually raced each other quite a few times. We're still waiting for the swim start, just waiting to get a pontoon. And brief hellos. I'm quite an approachable guy, and we'll have a chat. And I tell him that, looking forward to the swim bike that it goes downhill after that. But I'm a swimmer, so that'd be great. And his immediate response was, I knew you were a swimmer because you're wearing that wetsuit. And that's the kind of response. So it's not only the most comfortable wetsuit I've ever worn, and it's just great. It also makes me feel good wearing it, if that makes sense. But I've got a lot of nice kit, but that's the one which, when I put my Blue 70 Helix on, I just feel good wearing it.
What resources, books, videos, podcasts do you use to help you with triathlon over the years? I suppose you've got a lot of experience now.
Yeah, very little now, but at the beginning I did everything. From, the time crunch triathlete to, I don't know, the 8-hour cycling thing to all the Joe Friel stuff. And I did everything, read everything, and how to train with power meters. And now, if I'm honest, I do nothing. I just get inspired by watching other people, and I've listened to some of your podcasts, which are great, and some interesting stories. But I got a lot of triathlete friends, and we all want stories. I know people who've got dodgy hearts, who've got had hips replaced and knees replaced, and all sorts of things. I also get inspiration from them. Yeah, because I'm not training to be. I'm not trying to do anything different. I've done international age group stuff. I know what I need to do it now. I'm not looking to, if I did have to, I'll try and do something different, I might. But in the old days, I read and looked at absolutely everything.
Cool.
Yeah, but not so much now.
Good answer. And finally, what are your short and your long-term goals then?
Menin next week and then Pontevedra. Long term, but I might take a break from doing all the international stuff and just have a bit of fun playing around local races. Yeah. I like, I think back to I like racing every week. If I could race every week, I'd race every week. I love it. So that's my aim, to just keep racing.
Brilliant. Well, thank you ever so much for taking your time out. Much appreciated. Great story.
No, my pleasure.
Like I said, I'm sure you'll have inspired lots of people. Good luck in Menin coming up. I'll watch out for your results.
Thank you. Yeah, you look for me. I'll be the one in the middle.
Just like you say, just keep smiling and have a great time. So that's the main thing. And thank you very much. Well, he's certainly been through the ringer as Adrian, and he's come out the other side, thankfully, and he's back to it. So it just goes to show what can be done and what can be achieved. And I hope if you are having any doubts whatsoever, he's going to inspire you due to what he's done. So thank you, Adrian, for sharing your story and coming on the pod. Much appreciated. If you do want to get in touch with Adi, you can follow him on Instagram, and his Instagram handle is @ADWilco, and he's, as he said, he's more than happy to answer any questions that anyone might have. He's also on Facebook under Adrian Wilkins. So do get in touch with him, and he might be able to help. And that's about it for this episode. Thank you once again for taking your time out and listening to the pod. If you're liking what you hear, please do recommend the pod to your friends, your tribe, whoever listens to podcasts and is interested in multisport, because it really does help us get the show out to more like-minded people. So, and if you'd like to come on the podcast, you're an age grouper and you've represented your country, please do get in touch. And once again, you can get in touch by email at agegroupmultisportpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram at am_1967. We're on Facebook at amgb, and we're on Twitter at agegroupmultisportpodcast, although it's now X. So get in touch, or if you know anybody who's got a great story, give them a nudge and ask them to get in touch. Much appreciated. And don't forget, stay safe, keep training, and love the process.